Madam Deputy Speaker, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted. Madam Deputy Speaker, in all seriousness, I congratulate you on your position. I want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we meet on, the Gadigal people of Eora Nation, their elders past, present and emerging. And I also want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country I live on and that I represent in this Parliament, the Narragaow, Ngambri and Ngunnawal people. I also would like to acknowledge the two members who've represented Monaro over the last 12 years, John Barilaro and Nicole Overall. Because although I have strong policy differences and differences in approach, it is a vital part of the democratic process to have a choice, and both are willing to put themselves forward. 20 years ago, I delivered my first inaugural speech in this place. 8 years ago, I lost an election, and I said at the time that was it for politics. So standing here today delivering this speech is not something I expected to be doing a few months ago. Indeed, I was quite happily semi-retired. But I'm here because I've never given up being passionate about trying to make a contribution to improving our state and improving the area I live in. And sometimes you've just got to stop talking at the TV and do it again. It is a real honour to represent Monaro, and it is one I've had the pleasure of doing before from 2003 to 2011. I've also had the honour of being in the Legislative Council. There's no doubt there are a lot of differences from when I was first elected in 2003, not the least of which is that I'm an obviously older and hopefully wiser person. What hasn't changed is the amazing diversity of the Monaro electorate, the wonderful communities and some of the challenges they face. As some people watching and listening would know, I stepped in as Labor candidate with only a few weeks to go to the election. Labor's original candidate was Terry Campese. I strongly supported Terry's candidacy because he's a person who's been doing great things in our community, working particularly with youth at risk and for our local councils on things like bushfire recovery. He was also once the captain of the mighty Canberra Raiders, and of course that was a big tick for him as well. But I want to thank Terry very early in this, mostly for his work for our community, but also for the fact that after he stepped down, he didn't disappear. In fact, he did the opposite. He turned out every single day to try and help win Monaro, and I'm very grateful for that commitment. There are a number of reasons that I agreed to run. First and foremost was that I have never lost the desire to help our community, and hoping to play a part in the future of regional New South Wales particularly. But it wasn't an easy decision. I have been out of politics for 8 years and I've been doing some interesting things and enjoying life, enjoying a lifestyle that included bike packing and quite a lot of great country around Australia. And I have to admit there is a little bit of jealousy when I see my regular bike trip companions, Dennis particularly, who's currently travelling in Europe on his bike, and Pete off on rides. Nevertheless, despite some people being a bit surprised by the result in Monaro, I did know that if I stepped up, that it would give us at the last minute, that it would give us a decent chance of getting a local representative in a Labor government and doing some good. And I knew from the many phone calls and messages that our hard-working and extremely loyal branch members and supporters deserved to have a campaign that had a good chance. But it wasn't an easy decision. Unlike 20 years ago when I was probably rightly categorised as an ambitious younger politician, perhaps I now finally get the need for a bit more on work-life balance and come in with a broader perspective. I'm hoping that this time around I'm better at staying in touch with my friends that are there, the ones that are there no matter what, you know, the ones that aren't in politics. Sorry. The people like one of my longest friends and my fellow water polo player, Renee, along with our Threadbow family, they know who they are. And our friends around Bungendore, Queanbeyan and Canberra, of course. And perhaps that's my message to some of our new members. Don't get too caught up. Remember your non-political contacts and your friends. And one thing that I actually think I did do well last time is always make sure you're there for your children's special events. But do make sure you ask the whip first. Cherie, who is here in the gallery, was an absolutely critical part of my decision to run. After all, she told many friends after I lost in 2015 that if I ever did it again, I'd be doing it with a new wife. I'm very fortunate she changed her mind because there's no way I'd be doing this without her. She is an incredibly important part of my life. She not only agreed, but then essentially ran the campaign and it was a really positive campaign that everyone associated with Monaro Labor can be and is proud of. Cherie, along with our fantastic field director, Thomas Nikolowski, who's up there in the gallery as well, did an absolutely amazing job in the campaign office, and thanks Thomas for coming along with our amazing Queanbeyan branch secretary Leanne Coleman, who is just tireless. I don't think she sleeps. Our agriculture minister and my long-time friend, the Honourable Tara Moriarty, who's here as well, was a key person encouraging me to run. In fact, I think she spent most of a drive back from Albury one morning convincing me that I'd made the right choice. So thanks, Tara. And of course, a critical conversation with our leader, Chris Minns, who talked to me about the type of government he was hoping to lead, a government focused on the longer term, a government focused on embedding reform, on building skills and retaining teachers and nurses, focusing on the things that matter, not short-term politics. And that's what I wanted to hear, and I was really pleased to hear that from Chris. And then there is my mother, Jill Whan, who is here in the gallery as well, who, when I phoned her to ask her opinion, she said, yes, I should run, and she said, you're wasted at the moment. I guess the thing that really surprised both myself and Cherie was just how positive people were about my candidacy. Our children, our friends, and as the campaign went on, strangers in the street. People who came up to me at Woolworths and on street stalls and didn't just say, we're going to be voting for you, but actually came up and said, thank you for running. That was a first for me in my political career, I have to say. So, for those people, I know I have a huge responsibility to live up to the expectations and to live up to the positive long-term vision that I talked about so much in the campaign. Individual members of Parliament aren't going to change the world, and I'm a realist about what we can achieve. Inevitably, there'll be issues where I can't get the outcome that makes people happy, but we should always keep in mind that in whatever way we can, we contribute brick by brick to achieving some great community and Labor goals. All of us who have the privilege of being Labor members in this place should always remember that our job is to embed progressive reform for our society, and we can only do that by being in government. I've had a vision in my head for many years, and I know many others have, of a state that improves and guarantees the well-being and living standards of its residents by building its skills, competing with the world on the basis of being well-educated people in well-paid jobs, not joining a race to the bottom of low wages and low skills. A state that achieves net zero and has regional and rural communities growing jobs based on the industries that come with the transition, one that looks after its land and its waterways as well as its communities. Locally, I talked a lot in the campaign about longer-term focus, about good government not being just about big checks, and certainly not being about decisions that put politics ahead of good policy. Working to improve retention and recruitment of teachers, nurses and essential workers really resonated in Monaro. Too many parents had experienced their children being in the playground instead of a classroom because of teacher shortages. Too many people were seeing the results of overworked and understaffed hospitals. And of course, in an electorate like Monaro, there are a host of local focused issues. I was very pleased to be able to commit that a Labor government would be building a public high school at Googong and would double the size of Jerrabomberra High School. We'll also be building the Bungendore High School, though I would have to say that the appalling way the project's been handled so far will make it impossible for me to have an outcome that makes everyone happy. Much more importantly, it's created community division that will take years to heal. In the southern part of the electorate, I look forward to again working with the communities in the Monaro and the Snowy Mountains on their vital issues, things like health and aged care, roads and infrastructure. Key things like bringing aged care back to Bombala and sorting out what's happening with the Jindabyne SAP. The one thing that has blown out as an issue in our region, as in so many other regions, is the housing shortage. Monaro communities are bearing a brunt. Queanbeyan's had an issue for many years, but now it's spread to Cooma, Jindabyne, Braidwood and just about every other community. And it's not a narrow problem, it's about housing affordability, it's about key worker housing and social housing. And in Monaro, the problem's been exacerbated by the workforce coming in for Snowy 2.0, welcome as that is in our community, and the demands of the coming winter season. In future contributions, I will have a lot more to say about some of these things, and obviously more importantly, I'll be speaking directly to ministers and departments about them. Our region, like many in country New South Wales, also has issues with weeds and feral pest species. I look forward to seeing the government election commitments implemented in those areas. Another one for you, Tara. I look forward to seeing the results of the increase in funding for land care, which the government committed to, which will bring very positive results for regional communities and catchments. Over the last decade, I've watched our communities grow and seen many positive developments as well. Jindabyne in the Snowy Mountains is now a genuine year-round tourism destination, with summer mountain biking supplementing the winter ski season. As an aficionado of both, I'm delighted to have been one of those contributing to the economic activity. I've been thrilled to see the completion of the Thredbo Valley Trail over the last few years, something that started last time I was member and, to its credit, the previous government completed. Queanbeyan has grown substantially since I was last the local member. In 2011, when I was last in this place, Googong had a handful of residents. There's now around 8,000 people there. Fast-growing community that needs that high school that we talked about. Bungendore and Braidwood have also developed and grown as the population in the area, particularly those commuting to Canberra to work, has grown. I've had an interesting 8 years out of politics, and it's brought me back here with some broader experience. I worked on tourism for a while at the Australian Chamber of Commerce, and then I spent 4 years as CEO of the National Irrigators Council. More recently, I've been on some boards and committees. I've spent a lot of time understanding some of the challenges and realities of things like the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, and I've been able to observe what makes a regional community successful when it faces a major economic transition, and what constitutes failure. I have a drive to be part of a model for success, long-term success where government backs communities after they have worked out where they see the future. Change is inevitable in many of our regional communities, and the worst thing that I think leaders can do is to pretend it isn't going to happen. When leaders tell coal communities that we don't need to transition, or when leaders let irrigation communities think that we can reverse the basin plan, those leaders might as well be putting a blindfold on their constituents and leading them to a cliff. We need to be addressing those issues in a positive way which brings the communities along and sets out the future. I spent quite a bit of time as CEO of the National Irrigators Council working on energy and agriculture, on the perverse pricing policies that encourage farmers to go off-grid and install diesel generators instead of solar grid setups. On the transition to net zero, I'm very grateful that I have a much deeper understanding of the role agriculture can play and the great opportunities that are there. That is, if we can develop a system as soon as possible that provides certainty to enable agricultural businesses to plan. And on the renewables and agriculture space, my roles gave me the chance to get to know a bit more about that area, including briefly working with Karen Stark on the Renewables and Agriculture Conference. Over the last couple of years, I've been on the Murrumbidgee Irrigation Board, another great experience with an irrigation district and a community that has demonstrated the benefit of tackling change positively. It's contributed a substantial amount of water to the basin savings targets and has grown production and economic activity. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the great people I've worked with in the irrigation sector, in superannuation as well, and the 8 years I spent on the Club Plus Superannuation Board. I do want to come back to thank yous, and obviously I can't mention everybody by name, so I apologise to those who worked very hard in the campaign that I can't mention. Our branches, though, fundamental. Queanbeyan branch, Jerrabomba Googong branch, Bungendore, Braidwood and Cooma Snowy River branches. Without their efforts, and particularly their efforts on pre-poll, we certainly wouldn't have won. This campaign had one massive advantage. That is our federal Labor member, Christy McBain. She is an amazing local member and campaigner, and I'm very grateful to Christy and her team for their work and for a level of community activity from her, which I think is without peer. Stephen and Indigo in Christy's office, along with Leanne from Christy's office, were amazing. I'm very pleased that Indigo has joined my new electorate office. He's here today, along with Lee Evans, who worked in my office previously from 2007 to 2011. Our campaign was amazing for the number of people who turned out to help. We had former Queanbeyan Mayor Frank Pangallo, who was knocking on my door asking me to run fairly early on, but was then out driving around and doing all sorts of things in the campaign. Narelle Pendergast and Linda, who drove around with a poster trailer. One of my fellow regular Queanbeyan swimming pool morning swimmers, Robert Beattie, was out with a truck on Canberra Avenue with signs. People like Guy Verney, Chris Lauder, Lindsay, Tracy Murphy, Candice Cox, Sue Whelan, Tim Nicholson, all wonderful help. Cammy and his family, who were out at every opportunity. People from the ACT and ACT Young Labor, and of course our Labor councillors, Mayor Kenrick Winchester from Queanbeyan, Bryce Wilson, John Preston, Tanya Higgins and Linda Summers from Cooma, and Steve Tuskowski from Queanbeyan Council, also amazing supports. We had great support for the campaign from head office, from our new colleague Bob Nanva, our new General Secretary Dom Offner, and most importantly Alex Costello. I'm very grateful to them. Very grateful also to the support from many unions, the UWU, AMWU, ETU, CFMEU and Unions ACT. A number of former and current MPs turned out to help from the ACT, Andrew Barr and many of his team, and former Victorian MP Danielle Green. Finally, and most importantly, my family. When I made an inaugural speech in this place 20 years ago, I had 2 young children who were enthusiastic supporters. Now we were lucky enough to have 2 intelligent and compassionate adult children with fabulous partners. And they all in their own ways played a great role in this campaign. When I was last in this place, Lachlan and Maddie were students at Carabao High School. This time around, Maddie is a teacher at Carabao High School. Welcome back, Cotter. She not only helped with the campaign, but became my exemplar of the need to keep young teachers in schools. Maddie's husband, Alex, has been a newcomer to politics, but was enthusiastically engaged. Maddie can't be here tonight because she's producing the Carabao High School musical, which has its first show tonight. I'll be going on Friday. But took us to the Carabao High School cast and Maddie, their crew, for Catch Me If You Can, which is on tonight. Our son Lachlan lives in Melbourne now. He didn't fly up for this because we actually spent the weekend at Magic Round in Brisbane last week and had a lovely time. But he now lives in Melbourne with his partner Megan. But he was up during the campaign and working very hard. And of course, the support I always get from him is just wonderful. So thank you to Lockie, Maddie, Alex and Megan for being amazing. Thank you to my mother-in-law Leonie, who's been a fantastic part of Cherie and my journey to be here again, and who was up helping in Queanbeyan during this campaign, as she was the first time I did this. Along the way, she and my mum managed to clean up a number of the raffles at the various community functions we went to. Mum, Jill Whan, is here, as I mentioned. Mum, at 88 years old, is a very busy and active member of her local community, a community in the Premier's electorate. She has been an incredible example all my life of a tireless worker and also being an amazing parent and grandparent. And so I thank her for everything she's done. Last time I was in, I was also able to acknowledge the great influence my dad, Bob Whan, had on my involvement in politics. Dad was in the Whitlam government as member for Eden Monaro and later spent many years working here for Richard Amory, the then Minister for Agriculture. Unfortunately, Dad passed away in 2015. He and my father-in-law Roger are always missed, particularly on memorable occasions like this. And Cherie, of course, as I said, I wouldn't be here without Cherie. We've been married 32 years. It's been amazing, and I couldn't imagine doing any of this or doing any of the other parts of my life without Cherie. So I thank her again for all her support and being here today. As I've said several times in this speech, coming back into politics wasn't an easy decision. I was enjoying myself, but I am here. I still hope to enjoy myself here too, but you know. But I'm here because, as I've said to many people, the chance to actually make a difference only comes along occasionally in a lifetime. And the chance to be part of a new government in its first days is something that most people will never get. I really relish the opportunity to be part of a new government which has its eyes firmly on the future, on fixing some of those people issues. And we heard it in question time today. It is about people. It's about making sure that we've got the staff well rewarded and enjoying their jobs in the critical tasks that make our state tick. If I can play a small part in achieving that, then I'll be able to leave politics again, one way or another, sometime in the future, thinking that I have done everything that I could to make a contribution to the state. And I really look forward to the next 4 years of being able to do that. Thank you all.